Well, in hand drafting, you use different pens to give a different line thickness to various zones in your design. And the same applies in computer-aided design. Here I'm using gCADPlus, and I'm looking in layout space. Let me just go back to model space for the moment. Here's model space, and now we'll move to layout space. And I have line weight turned on down here in the status line, so let's click it, and if we click it back on, you'll notice some changes up here, and you'll notice the change around the large canopy of this species here. And there we are, those changes are showing. So that tells us that this symbol here has got some line weight associated with entities in the symbol, as has the symbol over on the right hand side. But we've had a query where a user can't pick the line weights nicely. If I pick the rectangle that's on the drawing sheet now, so this is in a layout space, this rectangle, and I'd like to put a thicker line around for a border, and our user says, well, when I try and do that and click into the line weight box here in the properties box, I can't see. I want to put, let's say, a 0.3 or a 0.4 pen thickness here around the layout sheet. I'm not sure of the size of the layout sheet, but we'll get to that in a moment. And he would like to visually select line weights by seeing lines of different thickness, and he asks, why is this not possible in this design? So let's unselect all, and we'll go to Format and Line Weights. And what he has done, probably by accident, is just change this display scale. So in usual use, we would move this, say, into about that position. We'll have a look at it. We might want to refine it. So our display scale, we haven't changed anything other than the display of line weights in that properties box. And we're now going to apply it, and we'll go OK. Now pick that rectangle again. And now when we look in the drop-down box here, you now see we have a visual guide. So a 0.25 line will be obviously a little thicker than 0.2. So these lines through here, these options rather through here, don't show a visual clue. So I would leave it somewhere like that. And for a border, let's exaggerate it just a bit, and we'll put a 0.4 thickness pen, unselect all, and line weight is on, but doesn't show until we zoom in. Can you see now we have the outer line thicker? The text is drawn in a default line thickness, which is 0.25. So if we come again over here and look at text styles, sorry, not text styles, we want to look at line weights. The default here is 0.25 of a millimetre. We could bring the default thickness down just a bit, 0.15, and we will apply that. The text then should look a little finer in relation to the border around the drawing. There we are. So you just need a little bit of understanding and fine-tuning of that drop-down box for line thickness. You might have noticed that this drawing is slowing in its response, and the reason being that the designer here has put lots of images, a number of images in, but the images themselves are very, very large images. Let's have a look at Format, Images, and you can see especially this bougainvillea is nearly 6,000 pixels by 3,000 pixels. So if I would be inclined to go back in here and reduce the size. Pretty much all you would need on a sheet like this is a width of about 1200 pixels wide. So I'd be using IFAN view to reduce the, let me close from there, to reduce the size of these images. We're carrying really detailed image files here, and that's slowing my performance. Well, let's return from layout space into model space, and we've got line weights turned on, and you can see now I think we need to deal with this symbol here, and that can be dealt with on the fly by selecting the symbol, right click and say I'm going to edit the block, and we have a 0.5mm line thickness through there. I'd be inclined just to select all these circles and arc segments, although I'm now a bit concerned because, let me pick that again, we have something down in this zone here. Let's see if I can pick it. No, it must be the center point of an arc. I'm just trying to work out why we've got a handle there, but I think we can ignore that just for the moment. So let's pick it all. Its line weight varies, so let's put it back to our default line weight and then close the block editor, and I think it'll show quite nicely on layout. And back into the model, and let's deal with the other problem. I think we've got a symbol here with some very excessive line weights associated with it, so let's pick that one up and edit that block. And again, there's some thick lines in here, 1.4mm. One can see what the designer is trying to do there to get some varying weight, but I think I'd be inclined to bring these back again to the default one, and if you wanted some thickness within here, why not be not quite so bold? So we'll make some of these a line weight of say 0.35 and then close the block editor, and I think that satisfies me. It's not a big blob of colour. So I hope that gives you some insight into the application and use of line thicknesses in gCADPlus drawings, and there are certainly a number of settings which influence it, and you just need to experiment with them and you'll be able to more elegantly lay out your designs on the drawing sheet. I did mention that we would look at the size of that sheet, and that's done by Layouts Manager, and I can see this here, this layout is simply on an A4 sheet, which I'd be inclined to, for most drafting purposes, set that as an A3 sheet. If you have an A3 printer attached to it, you can print to your own printer, but if you don't, you can always print PDF and then take the PDF file to your local copy centre and get it printed out on a reasonable size sheet to give your final design to the client.